Welcome everyone to another episode of Inspiring Thursday, brought to you by Vestis Labs. So I'm Fonny, I'm the founder of Vestis Labs. And today we have the pleasure of speaking with Marie-Therese. Marie-Therese is an expert with over a decade of experience in the fashion industry, and she's known for her work in shaping the future of education, luxury, fashion, and business.
Thanks for having me, Fawn. It's a true pleasure to be here with you today.
Well, to kick things off, Marie-Therese, can you tell us a bit about your journey? What initially sparked your passion for shaping the future of education, luxury, fashion, and business?
So my background is in international business and innovation management. And while this may sound a bit dry, I always knew I wanted to use my strategic and commercial skills and work in the creative industry. So I was always intrigued somehow by the fashion and luxury industry, and I knew I wanted to find a way to get into the industry. And much later on, the more experiences I had in the industry and with brands, retailers, etc., the more I learned in the industry and the more experience I got, the more I wanted to also change the industry for the better. And this was also in line when I got to the lecturing part. So the education part came later. So I currently work with a number of universities across business, fashion, luxury. And this really inspired me. And I'm really passionate about working with the younger generation and also shaping the industry through them.
Awesome. That's great. It's really, truly inspiring. So, as we delve into the current situation now in fashion, the current trends, I'm curious about the shifts in the consumer behavior. So what are your key thoughts or thoughts in these key shifts in priorities among the consumers today, and how are these actually influencing the way brands operate?
Yes, so that's a really good question. I think we live in a very complex world, and it's certainly a challenging time for brands and businesses globally. I think when we think about the luxury industry in particular, the sentiment, especially over the past few years, really shifted from the opulence of the industry more towards the need for substance and something of value that is long lasting. But it's important to note that value is also always very personal. So what is valuable to me might not be valuable to you, and vice versa. So I think this is a very important aspect. And then especially when we think back the times we live in now and the past few years, we think about the global pandemic, ongoing wars, political unrest, social injustices, climate change, etc. I don't want to go, and I don't need to go into detail on that, but
overwhelming, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I mean, for customers as well as for businesses, clearly. And I think as customers, the way we look at brands and products has changed really considerably, given all what we've been through, which is normal, I would say. And of course, customers question more and more how things are made, who made them, the price they're paying for it, if they really need it, etc. So we see a lot of shifts, which has been accelerated, which was there before in a way. The question around digitalization, sustainability, etc. But the pandemic and everything else has really changed that and accelerated that. And I want to share a few stats because I love my stats.
Yeah. No, we love it
too. Great. So according to an EY study, 80% of global customers believe brands must be transparent about their products' environmental impact. So it is a big question around, okay, where are products coming from and what's the impact?
Yes.
And then at the same time, in a slightly different sphere, but it's also very key for me when I think about customer priorities. So 75%, according to a BCG study, express a greater interest in looking after their mental and physical well-being, which is also not surprising when you think about the pandemic and what it's done. And of course, it put your personal health and well-being into perspective as well.
Yeah.
And then the last stat, which I think is interesting and really crucial for companies also to understand their current customer, is that 82% of Gen Z want to be part of a community. So now what happened, especially with the younger customers during the pandemic, when they were growing up, it's, of course, I mean, if you're going through a couple of years of lockdown, this really also, unfortunately, really hurt them in a way that it's fostered loneliness amongst this generation. And clearly they're looking for places and experiences where they can feel they belong. And this is a big part also when we look at what brands are doing and trying to do and should be doing. So as I say, it's moving more towards experiences as well, rather than just products. And what this also have done with the focus of the well-being, it's the lines between the industries are blurring, more and more blurring when we think about the fashion, but also music, art, traveling, so sports. It's becoming really like blurred in a way.
It's more like overall lifestyle instead of just fashion alone, right? It's kind of like, really encompassing the lifestyle, and not just individual lifestyle. It's like you say, the community aspect is so important that, all this needs to be really taken into account. Very interesting. And really fascinating how these consumers' priorities are driving the change within the industry. So, so speaking of change, do you think technology has been a significant factor in this transformation? Or how has technology influenced these changes in, consumers' behavior or how the brands respond?
Oh, definitely. So, I mean, first of all, not showing my age, but when I started working in the industry, Instagram was just being developed. That was around, I don't know, 14 years ago or so now, and it wasn't there. And so the first thing, or one of the major things that's really happened over the past, let's say 14 years or just more, over a decade, was the rise of like all the social media and digital channels, which had a huge impact because it shifted the power. So we saw a power shift, which was previously really on brands in the way they communicated and marketed. It was really like top down. The brands could tell you whatever they wanted, basically, to really giving the power to the customer, if we think about it, because with the rise of social media, customers could feedback immediately, they could criticize, or they could give love to a brand and products, and your reputation as a brand could be ruined within a second, basically, when you did one wrong move. So this was a huge shift when it comes to technology. I think this was the major shift we saw, like the really changing roles of the customer versus the brand power. And this, of course, impacted how brands engage with their customers, how they market, how they communicate. And also, as we see more and more, customers really have the power to put brands and companies under a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I mean, it is amazing how technology is so powerful, right? It can enhance, the transparency, engagements, sustainability, but it can also kind of like, as you say, it destroys the reputation within a very short amount of time. So so it is, making like communication, making kind of like a strategy within the brand kind of like super important in that sense, like, because again, like the brand is really under very high scrutiny.
Yes.
Yeah. So with these advancements, with this enhancement and kind of heightened scrutiny, how do you see the relationship between brands and the customers themselves evolving, that relationship? Is it, I mean, how is that affected?
So I think, yeah, I don't want to paint a too negative picture
Of
because
course.
technology is great, of course, but I just to give it a balance. But I think for brands and in terms of when it comes to customer relationship, technology is also great because it allows brands to collect a lot of data, of course, which then, for example, enables them to personalize the shopping or experience for the customers, but of course can also help with the in terms of brands and younger brands especially can help with collection designs, development, and also inventory forecast, which wasn't the case again years ago. And I think also in terms of creativity and connecting internationally, it's great, especially for younger brands, let's say with more limited resources. I think technology is a huge opportunity to really directly let the brand connect with their customers, but also engage internationally. I've met so many brands who found collaborators through social media, being it photographers, being it models, etc. And I would say the relatively low cost. So I think it's a great, of course, it's great how technology is shaping the whole brand and customer relationship, but also creativity. But I think it's also important when we think about that, brands and customer relationships. As I briefly touched on it before, but brands are not just selling a product. It is really, and it has become much more than that. Brands have really the power as well to shape the culture. We see a lot of collaboration also again between the luxury industry or fashion and art or music. So it's really brands are shaping culture and customers want to feel like they belong, as I mentioned before. And I think brands are enablers for this. And what I also want to highlight here is whilst technology is great and developing at a rapid pace, I still strongly believe that the personal relationship, as in human to human connection is and will still be crucial, maybe now more than ever, actually. So
That is a very interesting point because, you know, a lot of people have these conceptions that once you use technology, you're going to be kind of completely lose the human to human interaction, which is rightfully so because there are so many kind of like examples, right? You know, like in this business world, not just in fashion, but
yeah,
like you highlighted, you know, like yes, technology is important. It enhances, you know, several things. It makes, it enables kind of
yeah,
like, you know, deeper connection and so forth. But at the same time, let's not forget that human to human touch, because that is super important as well, especially in this kind of, you know, world that we live in with so many different um, problems, so to speak, from
yes.
different aspects, right? So,
Yes. And
no,
on a daily basis, I think we get all the news and advertisements and across different channels. And I think it's
yes.
important to take a step back and also reevaluate, okay, who am I and what do I want to do? And what do I want to invest in or purchase or etc. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So, no, very cool. Very, you know, food for thought right there. So, with this profound evolution in the
Yeah.
brand customer dynamics, how are these shifts affecting the roles of the people working within the brands, the employees within the brands? What new skills or approaches are becoming more and more essential?
That's again a very good question because I think employees are really key to the success of a brand. I think all employees are brand ambassadors, no matter if this is at corporate level or in a retail environment, and they have far more responsibility and power now and also in the future. I think to shape the reputation of a brand. Than I think is being currently accredited to them in a lot of cases. And I see employees as community builders. So they are the ones directly facing the customers, engaging with them, And additionally, I think what is still extremely overlooked, they are the ones experiencing customer needs like firsthand, for example, if you think about a retail setting.
Yes.
And they could share these insights with the headquarter and corporate offices, for example. So I would say the employees, so if you think about changing roles, I would say that the customer is more becoming the experience seeker, the brand is the enabler, but for me, the employee is also the community builder and brand ambassador. So I think, again, when we think about skills and roles, the employee should really, I think, again, the human to human interaction is really key. Soft skills, being able to inspire customers, of course, being very knowledgeable about the brand and where the products are coming from, etc. All of these things, but also I think the ability to listen to what the customers are saying, and this will be key in the future.
Yeah, I mean, totally. And that is really, like you said, like the community builder. I like that, I like that, the employees are the community builder. So if we're talking, of course, about the retail setting, as you said, like in the physical stores, but what about if, like brands are purely DTC, or, like they sell only online, or like in online marketplaces, or they're like a digital native brands. How would you say, like how does that translate? Just curious what your thoughts on
Yes.
that.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's also a good question. So yes, I mean, of course, when we think of omnichannel, we also think of retail environments. But of course, there is a lot of brands, especially younger brands or brands with more limited resources, choosing the D2C path for a variety of good reasons as well. Yeah, I think it's still, I mean, the way you can communicate and engage with customers can be in a physical space, but of course it can also be online. As I said, I think social media and all the different channels has made it way easier to engage with customers internationally, and
Yes.
also get their feedback directly from the customers. And I think what some brands do as well is, whilst they don't have or may not have a constant physical store space or longer term, they also do, for example, pop-up shops. So we've seen a rise in that, or become part of a retail setting in one way or the other. Yeah. Temporarily. And I think this is also a good way for them to really, for example, test the market or get local customer feedback if they want to try a different city, for example, London or Berlin or Paris, etc., at a relatively low cost, as opposed to renting a store space for a couple of years or 5 years.
Yeah.
So I think there are ways, but of course, yeah.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right there. And, going back to your first point, employees being the community builder, is more about the mindset, right?
Yes.
It's more about the mindset as the principle. So it doesn't matter which medium that you're talking about,
Yes.
physical, digital, hybrid, whatever.
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
that community builder mindset that is really important.
And I think also, just to briefly add to that, I think it's not just in the employee's hands, but also in the brand's hand or the company's hand to really encourage and empower employees at the corporate level, as I said, but also at the retail, especially in a retail setting, to really also maybe influence their mindset towards into this direction.
Yeah, because, even if you're a corporate and you're not directly, a consumer facing person, like you still can have this mindset, and that will affect your decision-making process in, like choosing like strategy, or formulating strategy, or whatever product, marketing, and so forth, right? So, it doesn't really matter where you are, really.
Yes. And also, I mean, you go out, if you're working in corporate, you go out, you go to events, you might be speaking at events. I mean, you are the face of the brand.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Yeah. Like that's it, like the community builder mindset. I like that. So, right. So go with this evolving roles, right, within the brands, which are certainly fascinating, super interesting, and things are changing so much and so fast. Looking towards the future, how can brands use strategic foresight and future thinking to better anticipate and adapt to future changes?
Yes, that's another very interesting and good question. So I think also a bit tricky, because
Yes.
what we see is that, I mean, we live in such a complex world, where I would say a lot of companies are struggling to face their day-to-day and deal with their day-to-day, which is completely understandable. And I think while strategic foresight and future thinking is becoming, luckily, a more prominent discipline across industries, it's still a bit, comes across as a bit, like a mystery, and it's still often thought of as looking into a crystal ball, which of course is not the case. So appreciate your question. So I would say overall, strategic foresight and future thinking can really help brands and companies explore possible futures, because there's not just one future, but there is different possible futures and their implications. And with that, really identify opportunities and challenges for the business. So we can see it almost like as a reality check, but for the future, if your brand is ready in a way to face the future. And I think what is also very important here is that it can also offer companies the opportunity to sit together with the stakeholders to really think about and tackle the tougher questions, and maybe look at uncomfortable scenarios and what that would mean for the brand. But also allow this to be an opportunity to really, like, together with the stakeholders, get onto the same page when it comes to longer term, like, vision and strategy, and how the brand wants to show up. So I think it's a great opportunity for brands, but as I said, it's often the importance of it is often a bit left behind, because everyone's just busy trying to survive this year or the next year, and which is a shame. I mean, it's understandable, but there is a really huge opportunity left behind.
Yeah. Reality check. So that really kind of,
Yes.
resonates, because like you said, sometimes, we're all so busy, right? Trying, like you say, trying to survive, trying to grow, trying to make it work in this challenging environment. And, sometimes we forget, right? To kind of like think or look beyond,
Yes.
the kind of tomorrow, so to speak,
Yeah. Mhm.
And then, sometimes like we need to definitely step back and do this reality check. Very often it sounds so simple, doesn't it? But very often kind of forgotten. So that's really interesting that you brought that up. So no, that could I really like that.
Uh,
Um
I'll just add to this briefly. It's like the reality check, but it also, as you say, it's super important, because not doing it could really, I don't want to say destroy the business, but I mean, really ignoring what's happening outside, what are external factors are shaping not just my industry, but other industries surrounding and connected to my industry. This could really have, like, really bad consequences for the business in the long term. So it is crucial, actually, to look at trends and forecasting and possible futures, etc. So it is crucial, actually.
yeah, it is. I mean, so with this, your insights on these strategic foresights are
Yeah.
incredibly valuable. Based on your extensive experience, what advice would you give to brands looking to effectively adapt to these changing behaviors and priorities?
Essentially, I would say it comes down to value creation. How is your brand creating value? Really looking at who your customers are and how your brand is creating value for your customers. And here I believe in 3 key aspects to create value in this current climate we are in. And these are, I briefly touched on them before, and coming back to the stats, these are authenticity as a brand and your brand's actions, experience, and community. And besides that, I think as a brand, it's important to really take a step back and look at the bigger picture, and also look at the long-term vision. So really, what is the impact of my business, not just on customers, but on the industry and also ultimately the planet? And I think with regards to sustainability, it's important to note that because it's so easy to lose yourselves in, I don't know, blaming the brands, blaming the customers, or blaming each other in a way, blaming the suppliers. And I think it's important to note for everyone, customers and brands, that is a journey and that it won't happen overnight. So for brands, I would say embrace transparency. Yes, share your progress, even if you're just at the beginning. And of course, try to innovate towards more sustainable practices, being it really looking at your business model, your product life cycles, embracing technology or new materials. And I think what we've seen more and more over the past years, and we'll see way more over the years to come, is also partnerships, choosing partners who can help on your journey towards sustainability, and also enhanced value creation for your customers, depending on what their needs are and what they're looking for. So this would be my advice.
Very, very wise advice. Thank you so much for your insights on this, incredibly valuable, strategic foresight. So yeah, thank you very much, Marie-Thérèse. I think, this has been such an insightful conversation. So it's been a pleasure having you on the, on the webcast today. But before we wrap up, if any of our listeners want to reach out or connect with you, where can they find you?
So it's best to reach me on LinkedIn and connect with me there.
Okay, great. So,
my website.
Yes. Okay. So we will have, of course, we'll have, Marie-Thérèse LinkedIn, on our post as well. And is there any kind of like parting words that you want to share?
Yes, I mean, I would say try not to get, for brands and customers, I know it's all overwhelming, but try not to get discouraged and overwhelmed by the current climate, because I believe still in the good of people, and I believe the industry is changing, and there is a lot of change happening, and there's a lot of entrepreneurs like yourself, Fonny, by the way, who are really positively influencing the industry. And I think it's just about collaboration and not losing hope. It might sound a bit cheesy, but yeah, this is what I believe in. So
yes. Sometimes maybe we need a little bit of cheesiness,
Yes, true. You can't have
yeah.
And thank you, Bonnie, for having me as well. I appreciate it.
No, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for anybody, to our listeners, for tuning in. Be sure to follow us on our LinkedIn page, Instagram, follow Marie-Thérèse as well, and join us again next month for another inspiring Thursday episode. Until then, stay inspired and keep transforming the fashion landscape. Thank you. All right.